Good evening. Welcome back to these conversations that I'm hosting. My name is Andrew Trobe. I'm responsible for the RCI group in St. Thomas's Parish, and very happily I have Gina joining me, who's very active in St. Thomas's Parish. Gina, thank you for taking the time and welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to be speaking to you this evening.
Wonderful. So Gina, we are talking. We're talking tonight. It is an evening in February 2022, and the Pope's prayer intention actually for this month is asking us to pray for religious sisters and consecrated laywomen in the church, and just highlighting how vital those groups are, to the church's mission. And I think it's very appropriate because, you've got a very special story when it comes to your reception into the church, because there was a very special woman that facilitated that. Tell us, if you would, a little bit about that story.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. I mean, the RCI program would have been a wonderful thing to have been part of, but I had a bit of a special route in. I had a young child at the time going through First Holy Communion, and it hit me that for me it was the time to explore faith. And I was talking to our local priest at St. Thomas's at the time, and he said, well, there's somebody you should meet. And I was lucky enough to meet, somebody who has been and is so much part of my life and my family's faith life as well, really. The wonderful Sister Rosemary. And, I pray for Sister Rosemary every day. So the Pope, sorry, not to suggest for a second that February this year is not an important month, but certainly our prayers are for Sister Rosemary on a regular basis. And likewise, in this special month of prayer for, women in the church, consecrated women in the church. I have such a strong impression of this. I mean, we sometimes visit Sister Rosemary. She's no longer in Sevenoaks, so we go and visit her sometimes in her home in Mount Oliver, in the convent at Mount Oliver. And, Andrew, as you know, I'm a career woman. These women are true career women. I feel like a fraud. Fantastic support that they've given communities. I mean, she gave me instruction in the faith, and she brought me to the faith. But what they have done, they've gone, Sister Rosemary herself in Africa for many years. When you visit the convent, there are women who have spent many, many years studying, many, many years in the missions. It's such a powerful group of women, and they've all been doing 20, 30 years working at the coalface. And if you like, what I take from Sister Rosemary's, the power of Sister Rosemary's faith and the power of the faithful women that she now lives amongst in her community, is, they go to where people are and give of themselves. And I think, there can be nothing more beautiful and more living the life of Christ than this. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I know she's had a big impact on your life and was key on you being received, but it's not limited to you, is it? I mean, it's the whole family that she holds in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, my kids were quite young when I was coming home from work, and we'd pick Sister Rosemary up at whatever time at night that I'd ring her from the train. I'm on my way, and she'd come and instruct, and we'd have the cat who's sitting over there now, but she's Franciscan. Of course there were cats, or the dog who would come and sit and listen, and then one of the kids would be lying on the floor listening in as Sister Rosemary would instruct me. And so I was received into the church 10 years ago, actually a bit more than 10 years ago now, 11 or so. And and she's there for my cradle Catholic husband's every question. When James is wondering, why is this? How does the church deal with these? She's a living resource. We're lucky. We can pick up the phone to Sister Rosemary at any time. or text her for that matter. She's very good on and this is again the thing, we're talking, Sister Rosemary's not a young woman anymore, but she's so in tune with tech, Andrew. It's amazing. I mean, she's very good at Zoom meetings, by the way, and some of the parish have even seen her on Zoom in the not too distant past. So super
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's
very much
just
living in the present world, living in the world and
absolutely.
bringing her faith into the world.
That's what the Pope is asking of us this month, is to look more closely at the role of women in the church, and particularly religious sisters and consecrated laywomen, and to give thanks and to follow the example, the selfless example. So, Sister Rosemary and her collegiate group in Ireland are a wonderful example, and we're so privileged to have had her for the period that we did have her in Sevenoaks, and wonderful that
Indeed.
your reception. But Gina, let's focus a bit on you, because you've roll on 10, 11 years on from your reception. You're now at the heart of the parish. You remember the finance committee, bringing your city skills to that role. You're very active in a number of music groups, and you're also a very active catechist in the church. What has inspired you to take on these roles, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, and maybe it's back to the same thing. It's being, bringing your faith to the people around you, and living your faith. And we think of the pillars of the faith, living the faith in the community. And Sister Rosemary taught me, and in Sister Rosemary's in her community's spirit, the fact that they bring their faith and the gifts that they've been given to the community that they live in. So in a way, in that same spirit, I wouldn't say that my singing is so much as a gift, but at least it's an attempt. And I'm fairly organized. I can spin a handful of plates, and so some of the organization stuff I'm doing on the program for confirmation, and and again, I'm trained as a lawyer, so hopefully a little bit of help in terms of the finance committee. So it is about going and meeting people where the need is, as such. I can only a pale attempt at it compared to the sisters at Mount Oliver, of course. But yeah, so I think that's a big thing for me. It's being active. It's been lovely working with young people and their faith, and dare I say it, faith journeys. Having had young adults in my own household, and watching them grow in their faith. The confirmation program is very dear to my heart in the same way, really. Just part of my faith journey too. It's an enriching journey, hopefully for both of us.
Absolutely. I certainly find that with regards to RCIA, it's a privilege to accompany people in this way, and it's the same with confirmation. Absolutely. So, but thank you, Gina. You mentioned there that you have a career in the city, and you obviously you're a trained lawyer, but you work in a financial institution, and I know that you've spoken about the fact that journey has fed your Christian journey as well, and within the context of how we all appreciate that, Christianity is a minority culture now in our country. So there are challenges in living the way that we seek to do. But actually, I think you found the secular world has certainly, been a source of inspiration for that journey as well. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I've worked in financial services for a long time, and obviously there have been periods where you see behaviours, and the crisis was indeed, let's say as a result, at least of some behaviours that were not in keeping with values. But I mean, previous Bank of England Governor Mark Carney has written a book recently, rather thick tome, which is really strongly based in Catholic social teaching about the values, and values that business leaders should look at, across all organisations, not just in the city. And I've certainly seen a lot of change in my time in the city. I'd say, recently I've done an MBA, and I've been looking at ethics and ethical leadership in financial institutions. And trained as a lawyer, looking at what regulation does to help and support leaders lead ethically in financial institutions. It's been really interesting, actually, to hear a lot of people who've been working for a long time in the city really just be very clear that behaviors that may have been acceptable previously are just not. So diversity is a very important facet of ethical leadership. Integrity towards your customer is integrity towards what you do. My career has been as a lawyer was all about transparency and transactions. When you're doing complicated transactions, making sure that everybody understands and is aware. And so, that's sort of been my my career area. I do fairly difficult transactions. They're quite complicated transactions for the benefit of bank balance sheet. And it was interesting for me that a few years ago, the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development put out a paper, one of the think tanks under the Pope put out a paper to say that the kind of transactions I do are, bet on the misfortune of people. And that was quite a jolt for me. And I had to think about that for a while. But certainly looking at, the way banks do business now, and certainly the bank that I work for does business now, it's helping communities, helping through financing. So the transactions I do strengthen the bank's balance sheet so that we can help communities. And, through that, being clear and transparent and fair to the customer, I think is so crucial to the way we do business now.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole, as you say, you referred to Catholic social teaching and the church's teaching around the common good. And, when the secular world is led towards behaving in a way which is upstanding and for the benefit of society, it's of massive importance. And so, those are some great thoughts and perspectives. Fantastic. Thanks, Gina. So perhaps in terms of closing, can I ask you then, you've been a Catholic now for nearly 12 years, over 10 years, and how would you describe how life has changed for you in these years, in this decade plus period?
Yeah, has it changed? I mean, I guess yes, it has changed hugely. I find myself, am I a different person? I'm not sure that I'd say that I am, but I guess my eyes have been open to some extent, and a little bit what we were talking about in the workplace, just being open and being cognizant of, doing the right thing, but for a reason now. There's a reason for doing the right thing, not just doing the right thing. For me, it's about my faith. It's my faith in the world that we're living in. I guess I've come to know myself better, accept myself as being loved. I think Sister Rosemary probably took about 6 weeks to drum that into me, that, as a Christian brought up, but, just not really thinking about faith as part of you and the fact that you're just loved by God. And I think Sister Rosemary despaired at some point that I would ever sort of really, really appreciate that and revel in that. But, it's also with your failings, as just loved, as being, but loved with all of your warts and failings. And I think that has helped me to become, a better person, know other people, but also, feel confident to put myself, as a friend, as a colleague, as somebody, a member of the community, as somebody who can help shoulder the burden. I think of that wonderful painting of Christ with the yoke, the yoke and carrying the yoke, whatever that yoke may be, with colleagues, friends, and particularly at times like this, through the pandemic. Just be there for people. And, you know, I think, even with my dissertation, I was sort of cognizant that leaders, you know, in financial institutions need to be there for people. You know, I think my reception into the faith has helped me to understand myself better and to be there for people.
Gina, that's a wonderful expression of the faith, and you've given us an insight into, you know, your personal story, which has been wonderful, and you've shown and pointed towards the role of women in the church through one particularly special nun that we all know so well in this parish, but you know, just highlights the whole debt that the church has to women in the church, which, as the Pope says, is not always recognized and should be always recognized more. And then you've pointed us towards social teaching. So thank you so much. It's been very special to have you give us some of those insights. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you very much.
Thanks indeed, Andrew. Good night.
Good night.